Earth is in danger with the amount of emissions released every year. Of the emissions released, 64% is carbon dioxide, 19% is methane, 11% is chlorofluorocarbons, which deplete the ozone layer, and 6% is nitrous oxide. Since the Industrial Revolution, 375 billion tons of CO2 has been released into the environment, compared to 280 ppm before the revolution. We are killing our planet, so we need a sustainable source of energy so that we don't use fossil fuels and release more emissions. Geothermal energy is an alternative energy source that we can use instead of fossil fuels. Let's talk about what's under our feet. Geothermal energy is heat within the earth. Geothermal power harnesses the earth's heat to produce electricity. Geothermal energy has dated back to ancient Greeks and Romans. They used baths heated by hot springs, and even examples of geothermal space heating in some Roman cities such as Pompeii have been found. Is it sustainable? Yes, because heat is always producing inside the earth. There are 3 types of geothermal power plants: dry steam, flash plants, and binary plants. Dry steam comes from underground reservoirs and is pumped into a generator. The 2 resources of underground steam in the U.S. are the geysers in Northern California and Yellowstone. Dry steam accounts for 20% of the world's geothermal energy. Flash plants use hot reservoirs of water. The hot water flows up through wells where it cools and then turns to vapor. This vapor is used to power a generator and create energy. The leftover water goes back into the reservoir. Flash plants account for 41% of the world's geothermal energy. Binary plants have hot water that passes through another fluid like ammonia that is a heat transfer fluid. That fluid has a lower boiling point than water. The fluid is then turned into vapor, which drives the turbine. These systems release no emissions because it is a closed-loop system. Binary power takes up 12% of the world's geothermal energy production. The first geothermal plant was built in Tuscany, Italy in 1911. Until 1958, when the Wairakei plant in New Zealand was commissioned, Italy was the world's only industrial generator of geothermal power. Currently, the U.S. is the top geothermal producing country in the world, producing 16.7 billion kilowatt hours a year. There are 22 geothermal plants in California, and second for geothermal energy producers is Indonesia. It is expected that Indonesia will overtake the U.S. by 2027. Followed by Indonesia is the Philippines, Turkey, New Zealand, Mexico, Italy, and Iceland. So which places harness the most amount of geothermal energy? Areas that are near tectonic plates or near a hotspot are suitable for geothermal power plants because when the magma is near the Earth's surface, the underground reservoirs are hotter. However, there are other ways to use geothermal power without being near a hotspot or tectonic plate. Ground source heat pumps or geothermal heat pumps tap into the ground to heat and cool buildings. Geothermal heat pumps work like a refrigerator, where they move heat from an area to keep it cool and release heat at a higher temperature. They exchange heat with the ground, taking advantage of how the ground has a constant temperature year-round. When the outside air is cold in the winter, the ground temperature is higher. In the summer, the ground temperature is lower than the air outside. This makes heat exchange more efficient. When it is cold outside, traditional heat pumps lose efficiency as they try to transport heat into a home from cold outside air, which is costly. Heating and cooling account for over half the energy in a home. Because geothermal is usually immune to weather and seasonal change, it produces consistently, distinguishing it from other renewable sources that provide varied power with time. Geothermal heat pumps provide up to 72% savings on heating and cooling costs. In Iceland, space heating is 98% provided by geothermal. Although installing geothermal power plants are costly, they save money in the long run, and there should be more focus on them. Geothermal energy costs 3.6 cents per kilowatt hour compared to 5.5 cents for coal.
Hi, I'm Lincoln Blevins. I am Riley's favorite uncle out in California, and I work at Stanford University, and I'm in charge of energy and water and sustainability and all sorts of things. And right before that, I worked at Burbank Water and Power in Los Angeles, in the Los Angeles area, where I was in charge of power and a whole lot of renewables and a whole lot of different kinds of renewables, solar, wind, geothermal, you name it. So very happy to be here. What did I do at Burbank with geothermal energy? Well, one of the things that we did, we had a very big portfolio of renewable energy contracts where we would buy renewable energy from different projects in the Western United States. And one of those was geothermal outside of Reno, Nevada, out in the middle of nowhere, where we were part of a project that, very standard geothermal project, where the project drilled down into the earth and got to the really hot rock and pumped water down there, and the water got really hot, came up with steam, and then that drove a turbine, which drove a generator, which made electricity. So wonderful, wonderful renewable energy coming out of that. So what's beneficial about geothermal heat pumps? That's the other kind of geothermal energy where it's on a much smaller scale. So the big benefit of those is that it helps reduce the amount of energy that you need to either cool your house in the summer or heat your house up in the winter. Because when you drill down only a little ways into the earth, the temperature stays the same all year long, whether it's 100 degrees out in the middle of August or it's 0 degrees out in the middle of January. About 6 to 10 feet down, the earth is always the same temperature. So when air is pumped down there, it goes to that temperature, maybe 65 degrees. And then when you pump it up, instead of having to move it from 100 degrees to where you want it, you just have to move it a very small distance. And the same thing in the winter. So you're basically using the earth as a great big battery to store, which stores very reasonably temperatured air, and using that to minimize what you need to do with the air once you get it up into your house. Well, they're better in that they take a lot less energy, and thus a lot less cost of energy and emissions from producing energy. At the same time, though, they can be more expensive. So there are trade-offs in geothermal. The drilling and the piping can be expensive, but once you have them installed, you're spending very, very little on your utility bill to heat and cool your house, which is really cool.
Let's use geothermal energy so that weather doesn't come more extreme. Geothermal energy, the energy of the future.